Hi, I'm Stephanie J. Block.
And I'm Mary Lee Fairbanks.
Welcome to Season 3 of Stages Podcast,
where we continue to bring creation and connection to center stage. I threw our names in an anagram scrambler online.
You did.
Because I had read that your name comes out to be Daddy Lives in Arabia. You had said that once. I'm very proud of that. So I threw Stephanie. You're not going to believe what yours is.
What am I?
Bake Shop Lecton. The baker's wife.
Well, look at that.
I mean, come on.
Bake Shop Lecton?
Lectin. Like lectin's a protein that is in food.
Come on now.
Funny? Yeah,
sure.
And you know what mine was, sadly?
Oh, no.
Freaky lame brains. I was like, really? I'm scrolling. There's not a better one for me.
Guess who has a nickname?
Get freaky lame brains.
Guess who has a nickname?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Stephanie J. Block.
And I'm Mary Lee Fairbanks. Welcome to Stages Podcast,
where we're bringing creation and connection to center stage.
There are some writers that just resonate with me. I understand their humor immediately, yet the show will still surprise me in so many places. It's dark, yet silly. It's absurd, yet touching. I recognize and resonate with so many characters that our guest today has written. Now, this might be because we're both Bostonians, although he's from Southie and my family came from the North End, so it's Irish roots versus Italian roots. Essentially, it's the same edge with a hint of slight difference in the Boston accent. But our guest today won the Pulitzer Prize. He's a playwright, a screenwriter, a lyricist, and a librettist. His play Good People won the Drama Critics Circle Award and had 2 Tony nominations. For his play Rabbit Hole, he received the Pulitzer Prize for Drama and 5 Tony nominations. It went on to become a film starring Nicole Kidman, Aaron Eckhart, and Diane Wiest. He wrote the book and lyrics for SHREK the Musical, which was nominated for 8 Tony Awards, and his latest musical, Kimberly Akimbo, has received astonishing reviews from critics and audiences, and it's very close to my heart. The Broadway cast album is out now, and it is just joyful. We're so lucky to have him with us today. Please welcome David Lindsay Abaire.
David Lindsay Abaire to stage, please. David, please come to stage.
Nice. What a nice introduction. Thanks.
Thank you for coming on.
Am I allowed to jump right on in? Or ML, do you have something ready to go?
No, go ahead. Go on.
David, I am so interested in knowing that a lot of your primary character, the lead character, is a female character. Mm-hmm. And so for a male playwright to have this point of view as the central character, going through a lot of, like with Rabbit Hole, the loss of a child, how do you tap into that sort of feminine point of view and write so intimately for the heart and soul of a woman?
Well, there are a few reasons. The first reason is I just, for the longest time, have known amazing actresses like Present Company. And when I was starting out, especially, so many plays were being written for men. And so I would ask myself as a writer, when thinking about a play, does it matter if the main character is a man or a woman? And if the answer was it doesn't matter, then I would just automatically make it a woman to throw a few more roles onto the other side of the scales and give some jobs to these women that I knew and loved and who deserved lead roles in plays.
Wow.
So that's like the most literal and obvious answer. If you talk to my therapist, there might be another answer. When I think of the person who has influenced me the most, not surprisingly, it would be my mother. And my mother was the center of every single family event. She was an amazing storyteller, and she was the funniest person that I knew. And she was also incredibly soulful and emotional and complicated and dimensional. And so it makes sense that I would try to people my plays with those kinds of women. And another thing is just, even though I say, oh, my mother is so present in all of these plays, as the writer, I am also inevitably very much in my own plays. And so to distance myself, I think, as a writer, by making the lead character a woman, I would think, well, I'm not writing about myself. This is a female character. It has nothing to do with me. And yet, in retrospect,
It has everything to do with you.
Everything to do with me.
Yeah.
As much as I say that's my mother, like those characters are very much me as well. And I honestly don't think, oh, this is a female character, and so I need to write it in this way. I'm trying to write, I hope, dimensional characters. And I don't know if there's anything inherently different between a man and a woman, and when it comes to that, for me, in terms of the.
Did you ever get worried, though, when you were writing so, intimately? Because the characters are damaged, most of them, but in a really touching way, right? Often. And so when you're writing and your mom is so present in there, when you worried when she came to see it and might recognize something not glorious about herself in the characters?
That's a funny question. One is well, I wasn't so aware how much she was in there, or any of my family members, really. So I didn't worry it so much because I lied to myself about them being in it for the longest time. So two things. One, my mother would lie to herself just as much as I would. So see my plays and make, how do you come up with these crazy ideas? She would never see herself.
Not a mirror, but a window. Your mother was a window. Yes.
And it was my sister who would show up and say, well, the one that I remember most is she saw a play of mine and said, do you think Dad is going to be upset? I said, about what? She's like, well, here and this and that and over here. And I thought, oh my God, I had no idea how present my family was in the plays.
Yeah.
And so, as writers, sometimes we do have to sort of stick our heads in the sand and just pretend we're writing about someone else. And Kimberly specifically, it's an old play. It's 20 years old. And seeing it now, I see things that I never saw back when I was first writing it that are very, very close to me.
What made you know that Kimberly was going to sing? How did you know it would work as a musical?
Well, I didn't. I didn't. That was entirely Janine. We worked, as you mentioned, we worked on SHREK the Musical together. Yeah. And, it was a wonderful project in many ways and really difficult in a lot of ways. And the difficult part was there were just so many people involved, including, film producers who had never done a show before, a Broadway show before. Yeah. And so the best part for me was working with Janine. And after that process, I said, God, I loved working with you. I would love to write another musical, but I wish that we could write it in the same way that I write a play. And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, nobody's breathing down my neck when I'm writing a play. It's just me. And it can be as bad for as long as it needs to be bad. It takes me a while to figure out a play. With a musical, you're constantly putting it in front of people and having them assess it and say, nope, that's not it. Start over.
Well, and they're assessing it with their own agendas, right? So the bottom line for the producers so it's everybody's got an agenda and an opinion, and it's shaping the show for you instead of you and Janine shaping your own vision.
Exactly right. And also without knowing what the process is, first draft is a first draft, and seldom is a first draft perfect. It's usually, there's an idea somewhere in there, but it's not here. It's actually, buried in this bridge down here. Maybe that should become, anyway, that's what the process is. And if you're used to just cutting bait the way they do so often in Hollywood, it can be very difficult. And so I said, I want to get in there and just be you and I for the longest time. And Janine said, absolutely, let's do this. How about one of your plays starting there? And I said, what do you mean? My plays are my plays. They're not musicals. And then she said, I don't know. She pulled Kimberly off the shelf and she said, this feels like it sings. And this is why I think it sings. And it, of course, has to do with the characters' internal lives and that we can crack them open and they'll have things to sing about. And so that was Janine's idea.
Going back to big corporate or studios, do you feel similarly like when you take your play Rabbit Hole and translate it then to a big mega budget movie? Was that a similar experience or different altogether?
Different altogether for Rabbit Hole specifically, because it wasn't, in fact, a big, giant Hollywood movie. It was a very small micro budget movie. Nicole Kidman approached me and said, look, I think there's a movie here. If you think there's a movie here, are you interested in doing it? And that by that point, I had, in fact, done a bunch of big Hollywood movies. And, they weren't always easy for me as a writer, because whatever I was excited about, I would pitch it to them and they say, yes, that's fantastic. And then you get 3 or 4 drafts in and the notes start creeping in and whatever they were excited about seems to go off the rails a little bit. Right. And it just becomes a completely different animal where the writer is not in charge of the story. And so I said to Nicole, look, I'd love to do it as a movie, but I don't want to have that experience that I've had before. I would like to be in charge of the story, and I would like to know that that's actually the story that you want to tell. And I would like to have some say about things. And she said, absolutely. We have no interest in turning it into something else. And also, we don't have very much money to offer you. So I can give you the other stuff. And because that movie was shot for under $4 million in 28 days.
That's so surprising.
There was no money and there was no time, which was sort of the best thing. They had to make the movie. And by the way, we hired John Cameron Mitchell, who is a man of the theater, and adapted his own piece, Hedwig, into what I thought was a very successful film. He was so respectful of me as a writer and the process. And so it was sort of a dream experience in film in the way that nothing else has been. I've had really good experiences and really bad experiences, but that's the one movie that I can point out and say, yeah, that's mine. I wrote it. There are other movies where I feel like, I can watch them and I feel like an extra in the background where it's like you watch and you're like, oh, there I am. If you sort of twist your head, you can see me back there. And 4 scenes later, I'm like, oh, there's a glimpse of me over there. And
I think that's beautiful that your Pulitzer is now on film and it's pure. It is yours.
It feels
exactly
like you.
The way you intended. Yeah, that's a happy ending.
Can I ask you a little about your process? Are you the kind of person that writes every day? Do you have 3 projects going at once? How do you manage it?
Yes and yes. I do write every day. I do have 3 projects in my head. Because I don't do just theater, I am juggling film and television work, and often my day is dictated by deadlines. Who needs something the soonest? When it comes to specifically plays, often I have however many ideas are rolling around in my head for a long time, sometimes many years. And I'm not quite sure if they're plays or not. And the way I generally work is when those ideas don't go away, then I feel like, I think there might be a play there. And sometimes I'll take 2 or 3 of them and slam them together and see if a play comes out. So that's generally how my plays have come together. With Rabbit Hole, I had been, before Rabbit Hole, I had written a bunch of really absurdist comedies. I did very well critically with those plays half the time. And then half the critics really hated those plays with an unbridled passion. They thought they were so ridiculous and too stupid and silly, and people don't behave this way. And I would see those same critics write very respectfully about naturalistic plays. Whether the play was good or bad, whatever that means, they would dig in a little bit and try to figure out what the writer was going for. And I thought, this is really interesting. Why are they so respectful of naturalistic plays? And this, the cynical, spiteful part of me, which is a big part of me,
Salty boy,
challenge accepted. I am now going to write a natural tragedy, and you all will adore me. Thank you.
I didn't get to the adore part, but
yes, you did.
Certainly the fury was there. But I could write a naturalistic play if I wanted to. I just need 2 people sitting on a couch, maybe some running water in the background. But that said, I couldn't just write a play out of spite. I needed to write about something that I cared about. So I didn't attack it immediately. But one of the other things that had been floating around in my head was Marcia Norman had said to us as students when I was at Juilliard as a student, if you want to write a good play, write about the thing that scares you the most. What is it that terrifies you that you can't shake? And when I was a student, I honestly didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
But then many years later, I had a son. And when my son Nicholas was around 3, we heard sort of in quick succession stories of friends whose children had died very suddenly. Relatively new dad. I, of course, put myself in the shoes of those parents. And in so doing, I experienced fear in a way that I never had before. The thought of losing this child just shook my heart. This is it. This is what Marcia was. Now I know what the thing is that terrifies me the most. And then I went back up into my brain and all those things floating around. And I thought, maybe this is that naturalistic play that I've been thinking about writing. And there are a couple other things, and they all came together into Rabbit Hole, just as an experiment to say, look, I've never written this way. What happens if you do? And so that's what it was. It was a test to myself to see if I could write that kind of play and what would happen if I did.
What's so beautiful about that play is the way it unfolds. We get little tidbits of information that could be one thing or might be another thing. And then another layer comes to that and then another. And so slowly it's all revealed. It happens really slowly. And so if you're smashing together 3 or 4 different plays, is that the part that comes at the end for you? So you kind of have an outline and then you go back and think about, how can I do this slow reveal? Or you know how it's going to unfold before you begin?
I guess I mostly do it in order. I mean, now we're going to get in the weeds a little bit. Mostly I start with what is it that I'm trying to write about? And so for that play, I knew that I wanted to write about grief. How do you write about grief? That's such a big thing. What about it? And so in a play, you want to have conflict. Okay, well, what if people are grieving in a different way? There's conflict. A husband and a wife at the most horrible time of their lives that need each other so desperately, now more than ever, can't connect because they're grieving differently. And then I just thought, are there other people grieving in different ways? How can I get at that? If there's an accident involved, then there must be blame. People must blame themselves. Right. But I didn't want to have anybody who is in fact fully at fault, because I think that would be too easy. And so carrying around guilt and shame and blame, but I also wanted a family that existed before this horrible event. So there's all this stuff with her younger sister, who is always, the fuck up in the family. You can bleep that if you have to. And then the Cynthia Nixon's character's mother, who was probably always overbearing and always problematic. That doesn't change because this horrible thing has happened. Right. All those relationships exist. And also, I didn't want it to be a dour, sad play, because one, it's not who I am as a person. I think about where you mentioned Southie. Like, I grew up very working class. My dad sold fruit out of the back of a truck for most of his life. My mother was a factory worker, and our family and the families around us had horrible, horrible things happen to them. So much so that they were almost operatic, and the way that we dealt with them, the way most working class people do, is through humor. Right. Things are so terrible that you have to laugh at them. So I knew that there had to be humor in the play. So all of that gets tossed into the pot, and how it's revealed, I guess I sort of did it linearly, but I knew all that information while I was writing it. And I also, again, this is probably getting in too deep, but I also knew, for the people that did know me as a writer, they were expecting something, and that was probably a comedy. And so I didn't. So if you don't know anything about Rabbit Hole when you walk in, and you might know me a little bit as a writer, you think, oh, this is a funny play. It starts with the sister talking about this bar fight. And oh, isn't this funny? And it gets so many laughs. And not until, 7 minutes into the first scene do we realize, wait, she's folding these clothes that she washed. There's something weird going on here. And it takes the audience a while to realize, oh no, I think there might be a dead child in this play. And I could feel it every night where the laughter started to sour a little bit, and things were slowly revealed. Also, as a playwright, and this is credit to Marcia Norman, again, as my teacher, she would often say to us, only let the audience know what they need to know at that moment. Don't tell them everything at the start. Let them discover it. Otherwise, your scenes are going to get bogged down by exposition that people probably don't need / aren't ready to hear yet.
I think that's what I was trying to say earlier, is the slow reveal that you've seemed to have mastered, where we get just enough information to answer the question that has occurred to us, that we're a little bit confused, and then you give us just a little bit of information that moves us to the next spot. And these slow reveals, it's like when you are watching the beginning of Kimberly Akimbo and you're seeing this older woman and she's calling the younger woman mom, and you're very confused, and slowly you start to reveal the information, and you do it at just the right time as to not lose the audience. So it's fully entertaining, and it gets them to listen really carefully.
Well, what I also find too, David, is that you're smart because you're speaking to human bodies, and you can't just take the entire evening. So you fill up our tanks almost. And then throughout the evening, you deplete it a little by a little by a little. You'll fill it up again. And then at the end, you take just enough that we feel like we have had this crazy emotional roller coaster, but we're not stripped. There are plays that I feel like, oh my God, I just spent 2 hours with a vampire. They sucked me dry.
Yeah.
I've got nothing left. It was very emotional, and I'm glad I had an experience, but I feel less than when I walked in. You can speak to tragedy and grief and all of the human emotions, but somehow I never feel like I'm empty when I leave. You didn't take from me. You actually still gave. And that's not an easy balance, I would think, as a playwright.
Well, that's an incredibly generous compliment. So thank you. I mean, I guess I'm honestly just trying to write the kind of play that I would want to see. So some people actually love to be drained and want to cry their eyes out and not have any relief. And God bless them for that. That's not, I like to go in and out and be surprised that suddenly I'm laughing and then my breath is taken away. Those kinds of plays were always the plays that excited me. And so those are the plays that I aspire to.
We were speaking with Lapine, and we were asking also about his sort of method and how he writes and where he gets these characters. And he said, I used to waiter and cater at these very fancy parties, and I would watch all the people, and it was these just character traits and idiosyncrasies that stuck with me, and that would form sort of this data bank of these characters. You're speaking about the neighbors that you grew up with. Did you always have a writer's mind to sort of pay attention and notice the character in the people that were around you?
I guess I did. I don't know how aware I was of it at the time. But for sure, I was always, for the lack of a better word, an outsider. And I had read somewhere another writer had said, well, as writers, we're always going back, usually to a time when we're 11 or 12, and we revisit that over and over and over again. Usually something happens around that time for us. And I thought, is that true? Where was I at 11 and 12? And in so thinking, I remembered, oh, right, that was the year that I got a scholarship to a private school. I got the 6-year scholarship through the Boys and Girls Club. As I mentioned, I grew up in South Boston, very working class. And I got a scholarship to Milton Academy, which is this wonderful private school out in the suburbs. And every day I would get on the train and travel all the way out to Milton and attend classes with all these generally wealthy kids that would, go off on vacations and come back with tans, whether they were in sunny places or they had gone skiing when I had spent those 2 weeks watching television. And every day I would go back to, Southie. And so that was defining. Of course, I was the poor kid that ended up on this amazing campus wondering, what the hell am I doing here? How do I fit in? This feels like I've fallen into Wonderland. Nothing makes sense. And then after a couple of years of that education, wonderful education, by the way, I would go home to South Boston and feel like an outsider in my own home. I loved my family and they loved me, but I was being exposed to things that they knew nothing about, theater in particular, literature, things that, were foreign to them. And so I was living my life in two very different worlds, not wholly belonging to either one of them, of course, right? And so I think, I guess that's where I was at 11 and 12 and 13 and 18, right? And so what are my plays? My plays are generally about people that find themselves in an upside down world where nothing makes sense, and they have to sort out how they fit into this world.
Yeah, where they fit in.
That's true. Funny Mirrors, a woman wakes up with an amnesia, and something as different as Rabbit Hole, where this woman who had total control of her life, it's turned upside down because her kid ran in front of a car and was killed. So those plays are very different, and yet they have that connective tissue, just as much as Kimberly Akimbo, just as much as every play I've written. I didn't know it at the time, but standing back, again, I'm going to mention Marcia Norman 4,000 times, but Marcia Norman said to us at Juilliard, we all have our stuff. Don't be afraid of writing the play over and over, the same play over and over again, because they'll all be different, but we all have our stuff. And for me, Marcia Norman would say, it's Lost Girl. Everything that I've written is about a lost girl. For you, it's something else. And I thought, I think I know what my stuff is.
Yeah. It's funny. Maybe that's why I can sort of resonate with your characters so well, because I grew up very, very Italian, same kind of thing. I was the first kid to go off to college. So I didn't go to a private high school, but I was the first person in my family to go to college. And I remember showing up for my voice and articulation class, and she almost fell out of her chair when I had to read from the book because my accent was so thick. I mean, my father was, not done, and it was really, that's how I spoke. She gave me like 7 pages of notes on how to get rid. I'll never forget it. She said, "Can you say the word cat?" And I said, "Yeah, cat." And she said, "Now say the word man." And I was like, "Man." She goes, "No. The same A in cat is the A in man." I'm like, "No, it isn't." And she's like, "Oh my God, we have so much work to do." But I remember coming home to my neighborhood and to my friends and trying to say things like man and put the R on the end of beer and being mocked mercilessly by my family, my brothers, my friends. And that was when that feeling of like, where do I fit in this world? Like theater felt like the only place I could find a space where I was really comfortable and I fit in. So I think that's why your characters, I can really relate, because I feel that from them, that search for belonging, that finding themselves in the upside down land, as you said. I really resonate with them. It's really
so. I ask you both,
Yeah.
do your families, now that you're both accomplished with higher educations, do they recognize you? They still love you, of course, but do they recognize you?
Well, I think for me, it depends on which member of my family you're talking. I'm not sure that they recognize it. No. My mother certainly does.
I don't think my parents do either. They really embraced when I would do community theater, regional theater. All of a sudden, I stepped into a different realm, perhaps one that we always just thought was going to be a dream that was never achieved. But then when it was achieved, I would long for them to give me the compliments that I always wanted to hear, and they just never could. They then could 2 days later, when I'm exhausted and unshowered and sitting on a couch, they could come up and say, we're so wonderfully proud of you and we love you so much. Thank, whatever, reverting back to a Stephanie that they recognized when I was growing up. I think they can appreciate what they're watching, but I believe I'm still a foreign creature to them when they're seeing me in the moment. They have no idea who I am, how I'm doing what I'm doing, where I came from. And it's just this very strange thing.
Yeah, for me, I guess it's both, honestly. I mean, I was always an alien, even before I went to the private school. I was always a nerdy kid that read a lot. And so who is this weird kid, And then certainly once I went to the private school, and now that I'm doing theater and met the success that I've met, they are both deeply proud of me, and I'm an alien to them, and I always will be. And yet no one knows me more than my sister.
Yeah.
Well, that's true too.
And it is that duality that I always found so confusing, that they know so many things about me, yet they can't recognize this part of me, the part that is screaming to be recognized, right? But I don't know, it's hard for our families, I think, to embrace that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so funny because, well, 2 things. One, no one will keep you humbler. Like they will keep you in your place, boy. And especially the Boston humbling is especially.
It's
anything
so
good. It's like, yeah, gosh.
Yeah.
Good
for you. Look at you. Good for you.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Like, and they mean it. And yet they also, whatever success I would have, I would be so excited and tell my mom, and she's like, well, yeah, of course. Of course, I knew that was going to happen. I was like, no, this is actually impossible what I have accomplished. You can't say like no big deal. Like this is a big deal. And so they keep you humble. But even the great stuff is sort of like, well, yes, you were meant to have that. You're the greatest person that ever lived.
Of course. I told you.
I remember I did my solo concert at Carnegie Hall. My parents, I had to ask them, please come. I think maybe they only came because my daughter was being baptized in the same weekend. But okay, that's a whole different situation. But they did come. And after the concert, my mother walks up and she's in awe. And she goes, oh my God, Stephanie, I have never seen your wedding ring shine the way it did on that stage. That was it. That was the compliment.
It's so funny. To be fair, my poor dad, who was so old fashioned, and I really was an alien to him. He did not understand me. I remember when after college, I was going backpacking and he said, where the hell are you going? And I said, Dad, I'm going to Australia and Tahiti. I'm just going to get in a plane and I'm just going to go see the world. And he's like, the Christ is wrong with you? You get in your car, you drive to Maine. There's nothing between here and Maine. You got to find any place else. What's your problem? And I was just this alien. And so then when I wouldn't, I didn't get married. I didn't have a lot of boyfriends. He asked me once if I was gay. What's wrong with you? You don't wear makeup. You ain't got a boyfriend. And then when I finally got to New York and started working, you'll remember, Steph, when he came to Branson, to him, me starring across from Pat Boone was like, that was the ultimate. And he sat in the front row.
Pat Boone, 12 shows a week with Will Rogers Follies.
And to my dad, I had finally, that was it.
Yeah.
And so I floated down from the moon. I came down, I sang my opening song, and my father stood up, started clapping, and he goes, "That's my kid." And he turned around to everybody, "Stand up." And I'm like, "Oh my God, Dad, it's just the first number. They don't stand up yet, Dad." And, right. I mean, it was so foreign to him, but in the end, he used to say, I don't know where you came from. So I do think we theater people, and we are these like strange little aliens. And
yeah. Now that you're co-director at Juilliard's is it the American Playwrights?
It's the Lila Ashton Wallace American Playwrights program. Yes.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
When you see the younger generation coming up, are you finding there is a different way to nurture them in this day and age? I can only speak to a very, very minimal experience, which is like a 2-hour masterclass or a 2-hour Q&A. The way in which I have been taught to approach now these days is the first 20 minutes is a bit of a disclaimer expressing who I am with my pronouns. I want it to be a very safe space for everybody. I'm finding that even in my very slim moments of teaching, I'm having to choose my words very carefully and edit as I go. And somehow I feel like I've lost a bit of an art form or some critiquing that I could give that could really help or improve, in my estimation anyway, right. What these 2 hours could be because of the delicacy with which we're handling students now. Are you finding that, and how do you navigate that if you do in fact see that in Juilliard?
Yeah, I see it a lot, but they've been really terrific in terms of giving us the tools and the workshops that we need to help navigate that stuff. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I've done it so much that I feel like, okay, I feel pretty good about navigating it, and also creating a safe space and saying, look, if I co-teach with Tanya Barfield, if Tanya or I say something that bumps you, let us know. Like we want to be better. We all want to do better. Same for us. If you say something that bumps us, then we're all going to talk about it. We're all figuring this out. And so, and the students have been so respectful about it. It's a very small room. We only let in 4 writers a year. And it's
wow.
So there are only eight young writers and then me and Tanya.
So the relationships are deep. That grows deep in 2 years. Yeah.
So, I mean, the harder part is navigating the feedback, actually, not around the language, but more every writer is different, and what they want to hear or what is helpful to them is individual to them. And so we try to get each writer to lead the discussion themselves. Every week, somebody brings in a play. They write 3 plays a year. And so we'll read the play. Usually just the writers will read the play out loud, and we'll say, fantastic. What would be most helpful to you right now? And, they'll say, oh, I have, just popcorn responses, and then I'll have some specific questions later. Or I just wanted to hear it out loud. I need to sit with it myself for a little bit. That seldom happens. Usually we do have a talk back. Sometimes they aren't aware of how personal it is to them until they hear it out loud. And so they might feel a little more vulnerable than they thought they might have been when they brought it in. So that's the harder part to navigate. And also, we don't want to write their plays for them. And so we try to ask them the questions that will get them to write the play that it seems that they want to write. And so that's the harder part, because we're delicate little beast writers, and I include myself in that. And what we need to hear can vary from play to play, not just from playwright to playwright, but every piece that we bring in is different. So
you only accept 4 writers a year, but how many hopefuls submit to you every year?
I think there are about 300.
Wow.
Maybe slightly more than that, give or take, but it's around 300 a year. Yeah, it's really competitive. It's tricky. And there are so many wonderful plays and playwrights out there. It's hard to assess. Tanya and I don't have to read all of them. We have amazing readers that narrow down the pile, and then once we get the pile for the finalists, then we have to, pick those 4 writers.
Wow.
And usually it comes down to who do we feel is going to benefit most from the program, because it's a very specific program. And so there could be writers that are just like, they're beyond us. They don't actually need our help. They're, far enough down the road. Or you can sense, now I'm inside baseball a little bit, like it seems like this person maybe is less interested in getting feedback from playwrights. It seems like they want to put Juilliard on their resume so they can go out and get a TV gig, which is true sometimes, And so it's hard to suss that out. But you want people who genuinely want to be there and who genuinely want to write plays, and also are open to thinking about writing in a different way. Otherwise, what am I doing there? What's Tanya doing there?
I heard you talking in another podcast about how you would have weekly or monthly gatherings of writers where you would gather together and just work through projects together. Do you still do that, or did COVID end that?
Yeah, it's a writers group. It came out of Juilliard, actually. A bunch of us graduated from Juilliard, and said, well, now what do we do? And it was a couple friends of mine said, well, let's just do what we did at Juilliard, but let's try to do it without Chris Durang and Marcia Norman, who were our teachers. And so we started meeting in each other's living rooms once every couple weeks. And that was over 20 years ago. And we still try to do it. The pandemic threw us off a little bit, but we still try to do it. And the group has changed and people have come and gone. And, a lot of people are writing TV shows and film scripts now. And so it's expanded in that way as well. But it's just incredibly helpful to have a cohort of people who speak the same language and know how to respond to each other's work in a very safe way.
And have you seen a lot of the ideas that popped up in those writers groups come to fruition and end up on Broadway or end up on TV screens? And
for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Lots and lots. Every play that I've written in the past 20 years has gone through that group. Kimberly Akimbo went through that.
Did it?
Janine said, can we have your writers group? And I was like, well, we don't really do musicals much, but she's like, they can all come to my studio. We'll just play the songs that we had. And so that's what we did. We all went to Janine's studio and Janine sang all the songs and they read all the parts. And even Kimberly Akimbo the musical went through the writers group.
Oh, that's so great.
David, in the 20 years, so you're seeing your play, Kimberly Akimbo, and the way audiences are responding. And now 20 years later, Kimberly Akimbo, the musical, and the audiences. Do you see that there is any sort of a major difference with the way people are responding?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I of course go to how am I responding differently. So
well, answer that too. That's very interesting.
I mean, when I wrote the play, I was more invested in the teenage characters because they were closer to me. I was much younger. And I mean, that character that Justin Cooley plays, it was originally played by Johnny Gallagher. That is the closest that I've ever come to putting myself on stage.
That's you.
Also, a version of me, but I'm just as much in Kimberly and, the parental stuff. There's a lot going on that was familiar to me. So having the opportunity to revisit all of those characters 20 years later, I'm now a dad with 2 boys, and I know what it's like to be the parent of teenagers. And so the parents were really reinvestigated in a way that I could only do now as a parent. And realize, I don't know, they're not so monstrous. All of their bad behavior is rooted in this terror of losing their child.
Yeah.
And so just my way into the play has changed, but also just what Janine's music has brought to the story is earth-shakingly different. You can just access emotion through music in a way that is impossible in a play. You can try to do it in different ways, but you just hear the line of a cello sometimes and you don't understand why your eyes are welling up.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's just the magic of music. And so I hope that I've improved as a craftsman. I hope that I've deepened as a person, but also just the gift that music brings to the story. It feels more emotionally deep. It feels more emotionally engaging. It just feels better in a lot of ways and different. It feels more mature in a way from the play, which makes sense because I'm older.
You're more mature.
Well, I have to ask, did you grow up playing the tuba?
I did not. You see calling me?
Hey, Janine!
Janine's story's on the line.
Well, I didn't answer. Thank you on the podcast too.
And now it's time for the 5 questions. If your life was a book, what would this current chapter be called?
Oh wow, these answers would be so good if I had prepared.
Oh, they get more difficult, mister.
Oh God, say it again.
If your life was a book, what would
Yes.
the current chapter that you're living be called?
Great adventure.
Oh, that's nice.
We're on an adventure. Yeah.
If we were to call your closest friends and family and let them know that you have been arrested, what would they have assumed that you've done to get yourself in jail?
Check washing, mail fraud.
Well, this is all Kimberly.
That came a
Akimbo,
little
baby.
too
Okay.
easy. Okay.
If we were to go into your closet, is there an item or a piece of clothing in there that you will never let go of because of the memories it holds?
Yes. I mean, there are a few. One is one of the nicest things. Greg Reuter was an actor who was in Shrek the Musical, and we shared a birthday. He has since passed away, and he was the sweetest guy. And we would text and email each other on each other's birthday. Hey, birthday twin. And during the run of Shrek, he brought me a sweatshirt and said it was like one of those sporty kind of sweatshirts where it usually says the team name, the Tigers or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, he's got me a sporty sweatshirt. I'm not a sporty guy. Instead of the Tigers or, whatever it happened to be, it said Pulitzer across it.
Oh,
It's the sweetest thing. And of course, I would never wear it because that would be so obnoxious. But that is the thing that will always be in my closet.
You can wear it around the house on a bad day.
It just made me think of something, though, in researching you and sniffing around a little bit. When you went to Sarah Lawrence College, your mascot was the Griffins. And in high school, I too was the Griffins. But you guys spelled it Gryphons. And I was like, okay, now I know who I'm speaking with.
I mean, I'll admit that I'm surprised to hear that we had a mascot since an athletic department.
Coming from the Latin term, Griffons.
Right. I mean,
all right.
Let's like intramural smoking at Sarah Lawrence. That was the sport that I remember.
All right, I'll bring you back down to earth with this question. Yeah. If you were a pizza, are you thin crust, thick crust, deep dish? And what is on your pizza?
No, is this my essence as a person?
Yes, your essence. No, I need David the pizza. Different. Yeah, your palate is different than your person.
I'm going to have that put on a sampler.
Add Pulitzer to it, and then we've got a whole lot of alliteration, and you're too fancy for anyone.
All right. Definitely deep dish.
Great.
I have to tell you my toppings.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you spicy? Are you pepperoni?
Definitely spices. A little bit of ground meat in there of some kind.
Okay.
Lots of green peppers and mushrooms and things under the cheese that you don't know are there until you bite into it.
Oh, there's a lot of mystery.
It's
a lot of mystery. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. Okay. Last question. Final question.
Oh,
if you were a nail polish color, what color would you be? And what would the cheeky little name be?
It would be like a brick orangey kind of reddish combo. And the name of it would be Boston Baked Beans.
Yes!
I love it.
I do too. You are a total pleasure. I loved spending this time with you. Thank you.
With you. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah. And good luck with Kimberly and everything that's coming up this spring because we're so excited.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful show. It's a total blast.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
And now here's what struck a chord with us.
Charming, delightful, down to earth. I mean, all the things
so
you
great, right?
want. Yeah.
When you see his plays, that's who you expect, because I just love the characters in his shows.
I'll tell you, I mean, my first question was about, a male mind writing primarily female characters. I felt the same way with Tracy Letts, but here's the thing. back in the day, I would just look at the program and see Tracy Letts and assume it was a woman, right? So I'd see August Osage and go, oh, well, yeah, it was written by a woman, Tracy Letts.
Right.
So when I find out that they are male playwrights, but yet they can get in there, so much of them goes into their writing.
It's not about being male or female. It's about being human, just human,
That's right.
Going through whatever they're going through.
That's right.
Yeah. Can I ask you a little bit, just to change gears? Can you talk to me a little about what your experience this past few weeks was like with Ms. Norma Desmond?
Well, here's the deal. My greatest pride comes from everything that I set out to do with the character and with the piece. We did. And that was a bit of a question mark for me, because Norma Desmond has been played in such a way that more of a theatrical fireworks and deranged and an oddity, that people come to the theater to see the bizarreness of Norma Desmond. They want to see, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept thinking, I know this is a human being. This is a woman who wants to be loved, who wants to belong. It's not just about holding on to youth and stardom, although that's part of it, because that was her worth. That's how she was labeled and deemed worthy to be in the world, was because of what she looked like and what she could do on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And there's severe mental health issues here.
Mm-hmm.
And truly, if there were the right medications, if it was different, if there was even discussion about mental health, that this story would look quite different. The words that came out for me when Joe Gillis said, he doesn't say she's wacky. He doesn't say she's atrocious. He says that Norma Desmond's quite a character. And he says, I like the woman. I like her folly. There's a lot of words there that are easy to hold on to as an actress and say, okay, these are good words. Folly is good. Being a character is fun, So I really set out to do that. And I didn't know if it was going to be embraced, because it is so wildly different. And thank goodness I've never experienced what's happening here at the Kennedy Center. There are mid-song standing ovations.
Oh my God. It's so, without Graff out in the audience screaming at people to stand up.
It's so wild. There's no Daddy Graff. There's no Papa Graff saying, do this.
That's amazing stuff.
It's really, really something. So I know, with the direction that we took and the specificity and the nuances that we created Norma and the relationship between Norma and Joe, it's not grotesque. It's actually beautiful and heartbreaking. And we all know how it's going to end, but to see all of the difficulties and beautiful moments that get them there, to me, it just makes it even more heartbreaking to play. And I think much more relatable and heartbreaking for the audience. So it's just a different take. But for the moment, it's hitting all the right buttons. And I'm just really glad about that.
Oh man, I'm so sad that I didn't get down to see it.
As am I. But you know, like we said, when it's just a week, it's hard, really hard to arrange. Yeah.
And I was taking my teenager to look at colleges, which I can't even believe that sentence can come out of my mouth, that we're looking at colleges. It makes you reassess your own life and your experience, and like my attitudes as I was going into college and what I would do different. And when I see that there could be an inkling that he would make the same mistakes that I made, like you don't want them to make the same mistakes. And so you try not to lecture, but you try to just like put the little things in there that they might pick up on. But it's yet another exercise in parenting where you allow your child to make their own mistakes, because you can't make them for them, and you can't make them learn from yours. Right. It's not that I'm saying he's making mistakes, but I think looking at the schools is making me remember all the things that I would do differently. So then I get worried that he'll make the mistakes, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And, there's something, I'm not using this on Vivi just yet. Well, maybe I am, just in different language. But David mentioned it with his students, share with me. And now what do you need from me? We definitely want to share what we think is right or what we've learned. Yep. But I always go back to what my pastor said years ago is unsolicited advice is going to be taken as criticism.
Yes, yeah,
it's not help. It is
Yeah.
criticism. So you have to kind of wait for the ask or the space, or ask them, hey,
It's really true.
what is this? What do you want from me right now? Do you just want a mama ear or a friend ear or a teacher ear? Or are you looking for a little bit of feedback in this
I
moment?
think that's such an important thing in any relationship, right? What do you need from me right now?
Yeah.
I don't think I ask that question enough. I think I'm too busy trying to either please or fix. And I think that's a flaw.
It's even, it's the same thing with love. You can love someone, but if it's not in the way that person needs to be loved, they don't recognize it in that way, you know? And I'm just going back to my parents who love me. I know they love me immensely, but it's just the way it's shown. I have to then interpret, look at them, think of me. And so this whole like mathematical equation has to happen before I get to the part where I go, okay, I'm okay with the response or the lack of response, or because that is their interpretation of love. So now I need to translate it. It's a lot of bits of work in order to receive.
You leave the heart, you go to the head, you sort it out, you come back to the heart, you try.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
You try to find that balance. That's really true. Well, this was really, really fun. He's so wonderful.
He's wonderful.
You haven't seen Kimberly Akimbo yet, have you?
Have not.
Steph, it is so touching, so adorable, so joy-filled, yet heartbreaking. You're going to love it.
But maybe one of these nights after rehearsals, I can get into Kimberly Akimbo if I'm not completely wiped, because that I don't want the season to pass without me being in the seat and experiencing it.
It's so great. It's so great. All right, my friend, I love you.
I
Go
love you
get
too.
some rest.
Okay,
and,
I will.
See you soon. I miss you.
I miss you too. Bye, ML.
Bye. Stages podcast is produced and edited by me, Mary Lee Fairbanks, and Stephanie J. Block. Thank you to Allison Arns, our booking agent, Brock Grenfeld, our sound engineer, and Tina Wargo, our social media manager. Original music by Noah Kaiserman and Garrett Healy.
Thank you for subscribing, following, rating, and telling others about this very special podcast. And we'll see you soon.
Feeling under the weather? You can teledoc that. Actually, for almost everything health-related, checkups, check-ins, and everything in between, you can teledoc that. Visit teladochealth.com to get started. TELADOC health.com.